Oh, no minutes.
Nope. All right, 6 o'clock, let's call the meeting to order, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, Mary.
Commissioner Wilkinson?
Here.
Commissioner Justardens?
Here.
Commissioner Burge?
Here.
Commissioner Prunick?
Here.
Mayor Barry?
Here. Okay, public comment. Anybody? Got any comment? All right, hearing none, let's move on to the consent agenda. Any additions or want to pull anything off the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, I'd ask for approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Prunick, second by Commissioner Wilkinson. To approve the agenda, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, consent agenda is approved. All right, new business, excuse me, item 1, UPEA invoice Munising Boat Ramp Improvements Project. I'll let Devin just.
Yep, so this is the November invoice. It was invoiced after they were able to do the construction season end, balancing change order and pay draw from Midwest Construction.
So, and you said you don't foresee any for December?
If there is, it's gonna be nominal.
Are you comfortable with this bill, Devin?
Yeah.
Okay. I move we approve the invoice for $7,668 to UPEA.
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Justardens, seconded by Commissioner Burt, to approve the Munising Boat Ramp Improvements invoice for $7,668. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Cooper Office Equipment Copier Upgrade.
Yes, every 5 years, we have our lease come up on our copier with Cooper Equipment. We had them provide a new copier proposal. It is the same functionality as our existing copier. However, it is just a little bit lower. I believe $2.92 was the monthly savings over 5 years for the revised copier.
Make coffee.
That's the real workhorse around here at City Hall.
Do we get training with it? Not me. Do you guys get training with it?
I will say, I have to commend Cooper Office on their service. It is,
We got a new one up at MDHHS and I went in and looked at it one day and I had to have training on it.
yeah. Yep, no, they've been good. They stop by, I would say, at least once a month, if not more. And then also, if we have an issue, it's usually next day service with them.
Is there anything that it doesn't do that you guys need?
No, in fact, there's things that it does that we don't even know. So the basic functions we use it for. We did upgrade to a tri-folding unit about 5 or 6 years ago when we went from the Pontum software to BSNA software, so we could do our bills in-house. But outside of that, it's the basic functions for us.
All right, anybody else with any questions? I entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the Cooper contract.
I'll support.
Motion by Commissioner Wilkinson, supported by Commissioner Prunick, to work with Cooper Office Equipment for the copier upgrade. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. All right, item 3, Viking Industrial Cleaning Final Pay Draw. Finally painting, getting the water tower finished.
Yep, so the water tower is complete, it has been complete at the last city commission meeting, the last actual work invoice was processed, and this is actually the request for retainage. We hold back 5% of the contract cost, just to make sure that punch list items get done at the end. We're very happy with it, and Ron, if you feel any other comments need to be made, but overall, good project, and if we had issues, Viking was right on top of it, so.
I feel like we asked a lot of the necessary questions in previous meetings. So,
Are you sure? All right, hearing no more questions, I entertain a motion.
I move we approve contractors payment number 4 for Viking Industrial Painting.
I'll support.
It's been moved by Commissioner Justardens, supported by Commissioner Wilkinson, to approve the final pay draw of $8,957.50 to Viking Industrial. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. UP Environmental Services, TMF Water Service Hydro Excavation Pay Request of $93,005.
Yes, this is our TMF Technical Managerial and Financial Grant from Eagle. This is the grant in which we're using the funds for the investigation and record keeping of service line material for the unknown service lines that we have, the majority of them. There are going to be a few that we're going to have to figure out after this, but at the last meeting we did approve the engineering for the grant so far, and then this is the pay request from the contractor. Ron, I'm sorry, how many have they gotten done with it? Third? About half?
Over 100.
Okay, so a little over 100. So they're about halfway done. With this is also a grant that's 100% grant. It is a reimbursement grant, so we cover the costs up front, and then once we're able to write this check, we'll submit a reimbursement request to the state for their reimbursement to us from cash flow.
This is their first pay request?
Yes.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to, make the pay request for $93,000.
Support.
Motion by Commissioner Bird, supported by Commissioner Prunick to make the pay request of $93,005 to UP Environmental Services. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Boss snowplow purchase, $9,013.50.
Yes, this is for a new plow to be put on our 3/4 ton truck that was delivered this past year. With the new trucks we purchased, we buy them plow ready from the factory, and we've been able to have our DPW staff utilize our wastewater treatment plant truck, which does have the same V plow on it, and they have been using it for driveways, for the big driveways into facilities, but also our parking lots around town, so fire hall here, just because it's a lot easier and it is a lot, I would say, lighter duty than using large front-end loaders to clean parking lots.
And therefore cheaper.
Cheaper, and in the long run has a lot less damage to concrete and asphalt and everything that comes with it.
Less wear and tear on the big iron too.
Yep.
Sole source, remind me, requires unanimous vote?
It requires unanimous vote, and then also, this is to Christmas Auto, because Christmas Auto is the only Boss snowplow certified mechanic in the county, so.
Well, I believe in buying local.
Do they always give the discount, or is that just like a nice gesture?
They have, so the only time we've worked with them is actually on the wastewater treatment plant's truck, their plow, and they did provide that at that point too.
Very nice.
I move we award the bid to, Jeremy. I move we award the bid to Jeremy, at Christmas Auto in the amount of $9,013.50 for the Boss snowplow.
I second.
That's been moved by Commissioner Justardens, seconded by Commissioner Bird to purchase this Boss snowplow from Christmas Auto for $9,013.50. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
You can be too local sometimes.
Yeah.
I do have one comment on snow plowing.
Mhm.
Do we or do we not, the city, have a snow thrower?
We do. In fact, it's
We gotta
being
talk
put,
about
it's being put on this week.
You know,
so-
that came up just the other day.
Yep, nope, it's, we're gonna put it into operation this week or early next.
So the 4 feet of snow that the grader threw in my driveway and my sidewalk won't happen again.
I can't promise that it won't happen again, but we are gonna be running the snow go on the loader, yes.
We're gonna use it downtown primarily.
We actually, got permission last week from MDOT to haul the MDOT right away, so we're gonna be working on the highway right away, cleaning out that this week and early next. But usually we run the snow go, which is the giant, diesel mounted, snow blower. We use that during the day just because of the visibility issues. We've hit postal boxes before with it, and all you hear is
Are
chunk,
we
and then
gonna
it's just.
take care of the snowbanks
Yeah.
downtown?
Yep, so Yep, so what we do is typically use that to carve back to right behind the curb line. So,
Well, one was still holding up that light pole after that accident.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, I'll take that one.
Okay, well, hearing none, no objections to the purchase, the motion is carried. All right. Item number 6, insured cash sweep placement agreement.
yes, so one item that is gonna come up next week during our audit presentation from Anderson Tackman is an issue that we've been trying to head off for a while, and that is our uninsured cash balances that we currently have. As of the end of last fiscal year, we had $7,558,000 of unprotected cash in banks. So what we've been working on is yes, Ron, 7.5 million. So
I just thinking about these guys are tinkering with the treasury while we speak.
So timely, however, we have a very conservative investment policy that allows us to use items that are identified in that policy, and the ICS is one of those items. What the ICS is very similar to the CDARS, which we currently have at Range Bank. It's on the IntraFi network, and we can say put $1 million into it, and what they'll do on a daily basis is basically reinvest and sweep that cash and invest it into 4 banks at or underneath the FDIC insurance limit across those 4 banks. So it's a very liquid product. All we have to do is if we need any of the cash, we have to submit an order the day prior, and next business day we'll have what's remaining. But it would basically give us a better return on investment than a standard checking account and allow us to protect the cash asset. This is part of the IntraFi network, and there is no banks in our county that are participants of the IntraFi.
Okay, I was gonna, the 2 questions, is there a cost for this?
No.
And we use Range Bank simply because of the size of our deposits?
That and they are a member of the IntraFi network. So they're one of the banks that is the depository where us and other communities, so we put $1 million in our CDAR, same thing, that goes to 4 different banks. They're a participant, so in other communities do it, 20 or 250,000 may go to Range Bank into one account.
So I thought I looked at, or, because I looked at that list, but People's was on the list.
So we have asked Peoples before about CDARS and ICS as part of the IntraFi network, and we haven't been able to get, and we've been told that they are not, and that is actually why we currently have asset-backed bonds at
That's right, okay.
PSB.
And I was
So-
just asking generally, not
Nope,
because.
no, we have, so at PSB, we have accounts that have cash in them, and rather than say have them under the FDIC limit, the bank has pledged other bonds at the bank for the security on them.
Oh, and only because I saw them on the list, that was the only reason why I asked.
so the other aspect of this though is that there are other groups that do ICS that besides IntraFi.
Correct.
And so what I'm kind of concerned about is that do we want to leave them all in Range Bank, or do we want to try to go with somebody else? Because again, you're right. I know that the credit unions don't, and I know that People's don't. But State Savings is part of one, and Nicolay that bought M-Bank is part of one, and they were through different ICS groups. Have we compared and contrasted the benefit of the other organizations, or are we just sticking with this as the provide service because we're already sticking with Range?
We did the IntraFi network because that's where our CDARS are through already.
Okay.
So we have an investment through the CDARS, and this would just be an investment component as part of that account. And what this agreement is actually a placement agreement. It is actually just allowing us to open the account up rather than have anything. And so it's a variable interest rate, but when we did our CDARS, the last time we upped them last fall, I think we had 4.35% on our investments or in the CDARS product.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions? I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the ICS agreement. Placement agreement.
May I ask that it also expressly authorize the city manager, city treasurer, and city clerk to execute the agreement?
Yes.
Treasurer or clerk?
Both.
No.
So can I make a motion to approve the ICS placement agreement that authorizes the city manager, city treasurer, and the city clerk? Right?
Correct.
Support.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Prunick, supported by Commissioner Justardens to approve the ICS placement agreement authorizing city manager, city clerk, and city treasurer to work the details of this. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Motion carried.
One last quick note-keeping aspect on that one. How will we see those returns in the accounts? Like, is that gonna be part of the treasurer report, or is that gonna be a monthly thing?
Yep, so it's actually reflected on the interest line on the
Okay.
reports.
All right.
So we don't typically, because we have rolling CDs, we have rolling products, we don't typically give you guys notice when we change them just because they're typically at market rate. But we have rolling CDs we have Emmer CDs, we have PSB CDs that we just, our investment policy, which will actually be to you guys at the next meeting for a revision. We'll get a better look at it, but it authorizes the treasurer to act as a fiduciary agent for the city's funds and investments.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, item 7, UPEA H58 over the Annie River Bridge, November billing of $5,960.
Yep. So once again, just an invoice from UPEA. The project will be out to bid. We had our final submittals just in December and early January, and so we'll be out to bid in March and April of this year, the project. Because it is a local agency project, the majority of the funds, above 80% of the funds, are actually going to be federal or state funds. And MDOT acts as the contract manager and the agent in which the bids and bid awards go through. So very interesting kind of component, very similar to how we've done H58 and Sandpoint roads in the past for local agency projects.
What's a heck RAS analysis? Okay.
I'm a city manager.
Okay, I've never seen that before. And this is gonna apply to several items later, but, I just did some strategic planning this week in Lansing, and we put up worst-case scenarios for federal funding. What's the worst that can happen? Is that we're gonna get none,
So,
ever? for
we
the next
actually-
4 years?
So with this project and Washington Street project are the two funds, or the two projects that we have anticipated federal funding on. Both of them are obligated, so the funds are sitting there waiting. After that, that's gonna be, where do we go after
This
that?
administration is testing the definition of obligated and is gonna continue to test it. And I'm concerned that we're gonna enter into an agreement for engineering services for money that we're not gonna get.
That's part of the December paperwork we had to do with USDA. Essentially, they have committed the funds to us. If things happen beyond our control, I will
Not to do
refer it
that,
to
not
you.
not to say the sky is falling, but it's quite possible that the USDA will not exist in a year. I mean, it's realistically possible.
Mhm.
Anyway, okay. I will move that we approve the invoice for UPEA in the amount of $5,960 for professional services from November 3rd to November 30th.
I'll support.
I have one question. No, I don't. Never mind.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Justardens, supported by Commissioner Wilkinson to approve the invoice for UPEA in the amount of $5,960. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Item 8,
Planning Commission.
accept Andy Irish's resignation from the Planning Commission.
Interminable.
I agree.
I'll make a motion to accept resignation.
Support.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Prunick, supported by Commissioner Justardens to accept Andy Irish's resignation from the Planning Commission.
I do have a comment, Ms. Mayor. I was at the planning commission meeting and discussed those with the people that were there. They have been discussing housing now ad infinitum, as she said, interminable. Is there some way that we can get the city, the county, whoever to come to a meeting of some kind and figure out what we can do, whether the city can come up with some type of taxing that we can afford to give out some type of grant or whatever for rehabilitation and or destruction of properties that are not viable,
Rehabilitation grant?
some type, I don't know. Is there, my thought, and I think you and I, Devin, you and I have discussed this, why is it we cannot have some type of resort tax on hotel rooms and motel rooms and recreational rooms?
Proposal A and the Headley Amendment. So the Headley Amendment basically was the first restriction on local taxation, and then Proposal A of 1994 was adopted and approved by the residents of the state. And what it did is the state basically bargained away our ability to levy taxes, confined a city to only being taxable or only able to tax real and personal property. So real property being your property, your valuation of your house, which is determined by assessments, which are determined on a formula set by the Treasury. The Proposal A allows us only to tax property. We are not allowed to tax anything outside of that, even with a vote of the residents of the city.
So, excuse me, so the so-called service tax, resort tax, whatever you want to call it, from Ann Arbor, East Lansing, wherever you might go and stay, you're telling me those are all in place before 1994?
No, there's two items that come into play in that portion of the discussion. The first being that a lot of them are visitors bureau, like the Munising Visitors Bureau. If you stay in Munising and rent a hotel room, they charge you a Visitors Bureau tax. That tax gets paid actually back to the Visitors Bureau as a whole and goes into advertising for the area. The second component is that there is a carve-out in the language by the state legislature that allows communities of certain sizes that have certain items like taxpayer-funded convention centers to levy taxes that can go into those assets. So I don't know if Ann Arbor has it, but Grand Rapids has been discussing one for their new developments in their downtown, and that's an item, but I believe it's certain income requirements. It's very well written where it's a county where you have to have at least one city of 45,000 or more that has a convention and visitor center, a whole gluttony of items that we don't get near qualifying for.
There was previous review to try to get some of that stuff. I know that was one of the things that Jerry Doucette and.
Okay, not talking about the lot.
Very long
Nope,
time.
so
Actually, this
we
is not
have,
part of the agenda.
yep,
People turning
yep, so
out.
this is a very good topic for,
I would
There
ask
hasn't been anything that is reviewed, anything that would be for smaller
Period on
communities.
this.
Nobody in the UP.
that we put the
qualifies
Federal
for
Home Loan
the
Bank
current carve-outs.
Neighborhood
They're only
Improvement
for
Program
the
on the
major
agenda for
metropolitan
next
areas that
meeting.
have municipalities
Because they do have some
nearby
funding there
that
for
would be
rehabilitation
able to
of
help
scattered sites.
check out,
houses.
chip in essentially
And
for that scenario. But
it's
we don't.
And
definitely-
People State Bank is a member.
What are the
Well,
possibilities
this
of,
points for the session, it definitely does.
I know our ordinance now is 66 feet wide for a home.
Basically, let's
Is that
say,
correct?
no.
Your lot has to be 66 feet wide?
No, so we have a minimum lot coverage, and we have a minimum size, I believe it's 700 square foot.
That will be our next-
On my ordinance,
our
and a
next
structure, a
meeting.
residential structure has to be a minimum of 700 square foot.
It's kind of a big.
And on certain lots.
The house has to be 700
But
square
there
feet.
is
Yep.
funding on it.
And there's other entities that can help to administer that funding. That's not just the city, it's
That
other.
the city can tap into, is that what you're saying?
Well, potentially, but there's
Or
other entities that can help
Some kind of,
administer it,
okay.
and that we can talk
Well, I don't think there's anybody on the planning commission has any idea that that's available.
So, well, we'll create
There
the
you go.
awareness.
There you go.
Awesome, all right, item 9. Item 9. Resolution of intent sewer disposal system improvements.
Yes, so following the obligation of our water and sewer loan funds in December and early January, we're now going through the next steps of the process, which is essentially getting our paperwork in order, and we have a fairly long list of administrative items. One item is that we do have to publish a resolution of intent. In the resolution of intent, there's a cover page from our bond attorneys that kind of cover bond counsel's role, the resolution of intent, and kind of a little overview of the process. But the resolutions are an integral part of this process because if approved and published, it gives notice to the community that the city is planning on issuing bonds up to X amount for Y projects. So you'll notice that there's one very similar bond resolutions but different, one for the water and one for the sewer. The water being a maximum of $2,065,000. That's 20% higher than what we've applied for from USDA, and the reason is that our bond counsel has recommended, and as we've always done, is in our resolutions, we try to put an extra 20% on, because between now and when we close on the bonds this fall, the cost can change. We have, cost can increase, we don't know what's coming down the pipe. It allows some flexibility with the issuance of those bonds between now and November or October when you close. The reason that we published this early is that it starts the timer on a 45-day referendum period as well.
Do we need four votes on this? One to accept the proposal from Miller Canfield, and one to approve the resolution for both water and sewer?
Miller Canfield's already been brought on as the bond attorneys. It's just the approval of the resolutions.
Okay.
I do have one question. On the proposal, at the bottom, it says bond counsel fee to be $21,500 or whatever. It says that anytime we believe the circumstances require an adjustment, can we get can we get anything from Miller Canfield of what those problems or adjustments might be?
I don't know if we can get a fee schedule, because the way that they're written is that they outline what would justify a change in pricing. The principal amount above or changes substantially, which is higher than the million or the amount that we've already kind of given them. Material changes in the structure of the financing, which with USDA, since we're down this alley, we can't change it without completely eliminating all of the work we've already done. And unusual or unforeseen circumstances, which I will say, as Rod alluded to earlier, there's always a question mark with the federal government funding sources, but I've never seen, in the 2 times I've done this, they've never changed or even discussed changing any of their fees. But I can reach out for further clarification.
Yeah.
We do need to adopt them separately, though,
Yes,
by a roll call vote.
correct.
Which one's first? Sewer?
The sewer.
I move that we adopt the resolution authorizing publication of notice of intent to issue revenue bonds and declaration of intent to reimburse for the sewage disposal system as presented.
A support?
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Justardens and supported by Commissioner Wilkinson to adopt resolution authorizing publication of notice of intent to issue revenue bonds and declaration of intent to reimburse for the sewage disposal system. Mary, can you have the roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Wilkinson,
Aye.
Commissioner Justardens,
Aye.
Commissioner Burge,
Aye.
Commissioner Kronick, Mayor Nettleton.
Barry?
I'm sorry.
Oh, you're gonna black mark for that one.
Commissioner Barry, Mayor Barry.
Aye. Motion carried.
Yeah.
That's all right. Okay, item 10, resolution of intent water system improvements this time.
I'll make a motion, we approve the water system improvement contract.
I'll support.
Moved by Commissioner Wilkinson, supported by Commissioner Justardens to approve the resolution authorizing publication of notice of intent to issue revenue bonds and declaration of intent to reimburse for the water supply system.
I knew you'd get all that.
So the only other thing that I would like to point out is that these costs are also going to be covered by the bond itself. So these aren't coming out of the water sewer funds. It's included in the cost of bond.
Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Wilkinson,
Aye.
Commissioner Justardens,
Yes.
Commissioner Bird,
Aye.
Commissioner Prunick,
Aye.
Mayor Barry.
Aye. Motion carried. All right, item 11, engineering agreement for sewer disposal system improvements.
Thank you for the fee schedule, Devin.
Yes.
I'm much more comfortable with it.
So these are engineering agreements with Coleman Engineering for the project. Once again, one of the items we have to have approved before we can close on the bonds is the engineering agreement. And thank you for pointing out that we did not include the costs in the in the packets. However, we did include the full agreements, which are about 80 pages long a piece, in the emails. I did very quickly was able to go through the documents, pull out the three components of engineering when it comes to these projects. With the sewer, it is basically basic services, which is anything from early studies, preliminary design, all the way through construction phase, which is people in their office working on it. That's $130,450. Resident construction engineering is having a certified inspector on site reviewing and watching the entire project, making sure that the contractor is performing the work to the standards of what would be generally accepted standards for construction of civil work. And that is a fee schedule of $159,500, since essentially they're planning on full-time from May through November of 2025. And the other is, the last portion is additional services. Those are items that are gonna be more of your contracted services through the engineering firm, soil borings, material testing, and then the Build America Buy America certification, which is new in this bond. In previous bonds, we've had to do the AIS, the American Iron and Steel requirements. Any metal component that we used had to have a certificate that was compiled and submitted stating it was made in America. With Build America, Buy America, that extends further. Almost any component we use in the entire project has to be sourced from the United States. We are able to get waivers for items that cannot be purchased domestically, but this is a new requirement, hence there's a new project line because of the accounting and the certifications that come with these. So that's a total of $324,900. That is in line. We, as a general rule of thumb, consider projects like this to have about 10% preliminary engineering, basic services, and then about 10% of the construction engineering portion.
Remind me of the relationship between Coleman Engineering and UPEA.
There is none.
There was.
So there may have been, in my tenure, there has been no relationship between the two. Kevin Trevelyan, I believe now, is the principal that we deal with at Coleman. Scott Nowak's project manager. And then with UPEA, Ken Dillinger is their principal.
Pat Coleman is no longer affiliated with Coleman Engineering?
I don't know. The only time I've worked with Pat is that he was with UPEA for about 6 months back in 2014 when I started.
Yeah, I knew one split from the other. Coleman Engineering split from UPEA. And can we take these, just adopt the agreement with the attendant fee schedule? Will that work for you, Madam Mayor?
Sure. Yep. Anybody have any other questions? Hearing none, I entertain a motion. For item 11.
Which one's short?
Item,
Yeah, I've got this one here.
item 11.
I can make a motion to accept the engineering agreement for sewer disposal system improvements, right?
With attached fee schedule?
With attached fee schedule, I'm sorry, yeah.
I'll support that motion.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Prunick, supported by Commissioner Justardens, to accept the engineering agreement for the sewer disposal system improvements with the attached fee schedule, entering agreement with Coleman Engineering. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Item 12, engineering agreement for water improvements.
Second verse, same as the first?
Yep.
Word?
Yep, so the costs are a little bit different. The water tends to be cheaper for us. Basically, water doesn't have lift stations, and very rarely do we have to do bigger items like well houses. In fact, we're doing one now, but the other one should have another lifespan of in Barnum or in the industrial park of at least 30 years, is what we're guessing. So this is basically, same, very, very similar contract, $84,850 in basic engineering services, $99,350 in on-site construction engineering, and $25,000 in additional services, so like Warren Tapo and Build America, Buy America.
Any other questions? Entertain a motion?
I make the motion that we accept the engineering agreement for the water improvements with the attached addendum for the pay schedule.
I'll support.
Moved by Commissioner Birch, supported by Commissioner Wilkinson, to adopt the engineering agreement for water improvements with the attached fee schedules, entering agreement with Coleman Engineering. All those in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Legal services agreement with the city attorney, Washington Street Water.
Water or sewer?
This one's water.
Water first this time.
Changing it up.
Just keeps us.
Confuse the mayor.
So, one more item, which is an item that we do have to address prior to the bond closing, is the legal services agreement. We do have, and in the past have used our city attorney for these services because of their familiarity with the city. In the contract with our city attorney, we explicitly state that for USDA work, they can charge outside of their contract due to it being basically occurring once every 10 years. So it's not a reoccurring item inside of the job description for the municipal attorney, and it has a little bit higher level of requirements. The two items that the city attorney has to serve, or the two roles they serve, is that the biggest one is the contract review with the contractor. So we will be using, and we have to use, the AGCDC, which is the standardized contract. However, it's up to the city attorney to review and approve that contract before the commission can approve it. And then the second portion is another item, which is the right-of-way certification. When we're doing any of these projects, we actually have to provide a map of all of the city-owned property in which the water and sewer systems exist. And it is up to our city attorney to review to make sure that the intent of the project and items within that project don't extend past property that is either owned or under easement for the utility system. So both of them fairly involved. You will see on page 2 that they do project $180 an hourly rate, not to exceed $1,620.
I like the way this is done. Under Robert was pretty gray on what additional services he would provide and at what fee.
So
You want a motion?
Can we approve these both at one time?
no, we have to do them individually.
Put roll calls, right?
Yep.
I move that we approve the legal services agreement with Odea, Nordine, and Pickens on the amount of $1,620 for, or not to exceed $1,620 for the water system project.
So, yeah, there's some blank in here that's not filled out. This is the ones that had it. So if you look on section C, point number 2, it says within no days. And while I'm not necessarily going to stop everything, did he mean to miss that, or is that something that we can adopt afterwards with
Good
clarification?
catch.
So what actually happens in this is that we actually don't sign the agreements until we get to the closing of the bonds. We have to have them approved by the commission ahead of time. So because of the uncertainty of the closing dates, we leave those dates blank, but it's typically about 30 days, give or take, of the closing date.
So we have to sign something blank.
Approve it. We don't sign it until later on, but it's the language and the expense that the city commission approves. And this is the standardized form from USDA that was revised by the USDA 15 years ago. So.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Moved by Commissioner Justardens, seconded by Commissioner Wilkinson to approve the legal services agreement with Odea, Nordine, and Pickens to not exceed $1,620. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries.
Are we gonna roll call?
Oh, roll call, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
roll call.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wilkinson?
Aye.
Commissioner Justardens?
Yes.
Commissioner Byrd?
No.
Commissioner Prunick?
Yes.
Mayor Nettleton? Mayor Barry?
That's
I'm
two.
done.
That's two.
Two?
It's been the longest day
No
ever.
worries. Okay, motion
Okay.
carried. All right, item 14, legal service agreement with city attorney for Washington Street Sewer Project.
I'll make a motion, we approve the legal service agreement with O'Day, Nordine, and Pickens for Washington Street project, sewer project.
Support.
It's approved by Commissioner Wilkinson, supported by Commissioner Prunick to approve the legal services agreement with O'Day, Nordine, and Pickens for the Washington Street Sewer Project. Roll call, please.
If I may, just to clarify that as well, point 2, it is essentially a penalty for not acting on the contract. You'll notice the second paragraph has a payment for that penalty of NA, where regardless of timing, the O'Day, Nordine, and Pickens is agreeing to not charge us a penalty. So the timeframe doesn't matter with no penalty.
Quite honestly, as long as there's a recognition of the blanks in the motion, I'll say yes. We just kind of jumped a little bit ahead, so if the motion was to be amended to include that there are blanks in here for the functionality of the contract, I'm okay with it. So,
Bob, do you want to amend?
Yeah, I'll amend the motion as stated.
And did we have a second?
Prunick.
Okay, so the motion has been amended, a motion made by Wilkinson, Commissioner Wilkinson, amended and seconded by Commissioner Prunick to approve the legal services agreement with O'Day, Nordine, and Pickens with the contingency or caveat that, how did you state that?
that, for the functionality of the contract, that there are still recognized blanks.
Got that, Mary?
In recognition that the blank.
That paragraph
Two.
section 2, paragraph 1 has a blank.
Okay, now we'll roll call.
All right.
Commissioner Wilkinson?
Aye.
Commissioner Justardens?
Aye.
Commissioner Byrd?
Aye.
Commissioner Prunick?
Aye.
Mayor Barry?
Yes, Okay. Item 15, road closure, June 12th at noon through Saturday, June 14th for Pictured Rocks Days. This has been submitted by Kathy Reynolds. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, I do. Every year on that Saturday and Sunday, there's like a whole giant mess of people trying to get stuff out and things that have been left. It's unclear even in the paperwork that's provided by the chamber in terms of what you can do to leave and not leave afterwards. So really, they should be asking for Sunday too. Just in terms of making sure that everything's clear, because there are food trucks that are left there until late Sunday night most of the time, and it does impact some of the way that things are flowing down there. I don't know if there's an additional charge or fee for the extra day, but quite frankly, it should include Sunday. If they're gonna be pushing the Thursday overnight into Friday, then they should be requesting for an additional day.
Did this come from the DDA in the past?
It comes from the chamber,
Chamber.
because they're able, it's a chamber fundraiser that is put on by the DDA, the chamber office. We actually
Who
have
pays the insurance?
the chamber does. So we actually have a license agreement that we will have with them after this. So typically they submit the approval to close the roads for the events on the 13th and 14th, but we have a license agreement that we'll approve before the event that specifies when all items must be taken care of and addressed. And I believe we go even to maybe Monday morning to let them, if they have a nasty weather on Sunday, that lets them, be able to have trash there till Monday morning, things like that. But there is another agreement that we have for the use of the park officially,
Okay.
that our attorney puts together.
All right, as long as it's addressed at some point, then I have a problem with it.
Any other questions, concerns? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve to close the road for Picture Rocks Days from Thursday at noon to Saturday at 8 p.m.
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Prunick, seconded by Commissioner Wilkinson to authorize the road closure of Veterans Memorial Drive from Thursday, June 12th at noon through Saturday, June 14th at 8 p.m. All those in favor? Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Item 16, Farnham Street, final pay draw, local funds of $30,333.09.
So as Rod had alluded to earlier, things are getting feisty with the USDA, and we have been working on closing out our Barnum Street project. And with that is a final pay draw for the contractors. The last pay draw that was approved for the contractor was $127,000 in change of USDA RD water funds. When we go for that final pay draw, that is when the USDA performs a file review to make sure that they have all of the bid bonds, all of the items that they have to fill out. That's when they review the American Iron and Steel certificates and all of the paperwork that we have. One item that they did not have is they did not have a change order from change order 1 and change order 2 that was signed by all three parties. So they had them signed, one of them I believe was signed by us and UPEA, the other one was signed by Giroux and us. So they are not able to increase our budget for the USDA RD funds, which would have been $30,333.09. As of last Tuesday, we worked with our project rep at USDA on getting the $97,000 that we had in remaining project funds for Barnum Street ordered, delivered, and then delivered to us here via our bank accounts, and then delivered to the contractor. Because as of Wednesday morning, all federal funds were frozen, so we are not able to increase the draws, and the USDA is not able to provide a time frame on when, had we been able to submit the signed change orders, that they would be able to do the full $127,000. So they deposited the $97,000, and we decided to bring the commission to $30,333.09. With that in mind, the water fund and water project is a big bucket of money that we had divided into the M28 corridor, Barnum Street corridor, and Bayshore Wellhouse. And what this does is actually, we are gonna decrease the amount that we are gonna be budgeting for the city funds out of the water account as our contributing funds to the well house by $30,303.09, and increasing the city match to the Varnum Street project of $30,333.09. I'm sorry, it's
No, it's a
a
wash.
tongue
It's a long
twister,
day.
but
Right.
in the wash, it's zero sum. It's just where we're allocating those dollars from Bayshore Wellhouse to Varnum to make sure that we
Are
get
we
our
gonna
contract.
get the balance from USDA?
What's that?
Are we gonna get the balance from USDA?
We will, however, it will be contributed to the Bayshore Wellhouse portion of the
As long as we're gonna get it.
Yes.
Be a while.
I move that we approve the pay request for the amount of $30,333.09 to Giroux Excavating.
I'll support.
It's been moved by Commissioner Justardens, supported by Commissioner Wilkinson to approve the final pay draw for the Barnum Street project to Giroux in the amount of $30,333.09. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 17, MML Executive Search for City Manager.
So following the last meeting, under the direction of the commission, I did reach out to a number of search firms, the MML being the primary one. There's also in the past, been a couple of other consultants acting in Michigan that are sometimes retired city managers or what have you. The contacts I've worked with in the past are no longer in the business. Not very in tune with the consultants that do manager search, just because it's never been on my radar. But the MML has provided a a service that has been revamped. The MML has expanded their employee base as well as revamping their service provision to their member communities. And they have provided the brochure that had the general breakdown of what their three search levels are. The typical search level is your standard search. There's a higher and a lower level. I did provide that via email to the commission last week, and then they did provide to us late last night a formal proposal for the city for a typical manager search. So it kind of, the proposal that I emailed out and then provided a copy of has a basically from the first step to the last step, and it includes the marketing material that I'd also sent out for other examples of other communities, but also extends through contract negotiation and background checks all the way through the hiring process. So this, because we are a member community, would be $18,500 for the entire package. They also provided in the proposal some of the contacts. It would be Heather and Emily at the MML, and then it would actually be Glenn Anderson, who would be our regional contact and be doing a lot of the in-person items. Glenn has been a city manager and been elected to a number of boards up in the Houghton area for a number of years, and has and will be serving as our MML UP representative as well moving forward.
Is he still local? Is he still in the UP?
Yes, yep, so he is still, and to my knowledge, he is still in the Hancock area, and I believe still serving on at least one elected board in the county.
He looks awful familiar to me.
You know, I see him every so often on TV6 and things like that.
The timeline is 120 days. That just seems elongated for some reason.
So I don't disagree, and I think that they are giving they'd rather be under that than over that type of approach to it. And with me being here through at least early April, I have the ability to work directly with them on a constant basis for building the community profile, which is fact-based, and then Glenn can work with the city commission on putting together the candidate profile for what you guys would like to see in your next city manager.
I recall at some time in the past, we ended up getting an interim city manager through MML because the outgoing city manager was not available to extend. And it was Judy Stanley, Judy Slancic, Judy Ekela.
So that was,
I mean, I know you expressed a willingness to do some part-time stuff, but manager's a full-time job.
yes, so in fact, I met today before the meeting and went over the packets, which I always do with the mayor prior to our meetings, but also went over a rough proposal to stay on-site at least 3 days a week, 3 full days a week, and then be available at least 5 days a week through June 16th to get the budget
When do you
done.
plan on moving?
So actually, my wife's already moved, and it will be sometime in that time frame. Is after 10 years, it's
You'll be here through April.
I'm through here. I'm here full time through April 3rd at minimum.
In Munising on site?
Yep, 5 days a week. Yep,
Okay.
bright and early.
It's a reasonable proposal, it just seems like the timeline is elongated unnecessarily. But
Yeah.
if they're willing to truncate that, I mean, how long does it take to develop a community profile?
I don't know. However, it is going to be one of my priorities through the next few weeks to try to get them as much information as early as possible to help speed the items along. One item that may come up with the city commission, just as a primer, is the fact that you may need to schedule some special meetings for interview processes, or to maybe even have meetings with our consultant from MML, if you do approve it, to build out that candidate profile to help move things along.
And I agree with the screening and selection assistance, though I want access to every resume for
Yep.
every applicant.
Yep, so my email to them also, my initial email to them included that specifically as it was addressed in the last meeting too.
I think it's a fair proposal, twice as much as we paid last time. But that was 10
I was
years
gonna
ago.
say, this is a little time.
12 years ago.
Inflation.
Yep.
You were cheaper.
So, did you guys have a meeting yet with this little subcommittee and stuff?
No.
Okay.
So I spent, well, I was gone for a week, and then this past week I reached out to some of my other contacts, and one being Frank Walsh from Frank Walsh Consulting, former Meridian Township manager, and he took a new job as a manager and has gotten out of the consultant business. And then there was another individual out of the Port Huron area who did it, and he did it as a part-time after his management career, and he is now out of the business full-time and retired.
Totally fine. I just, in terms of how that subcommittee works, like how comfortable do you feel about having the subcommittee as expressed in the motion last meeting with this schedule? Do you think that's gonna be something that is gonna fit? Is that something that you wanna kick out more towards like a standing action on
I
each?
work at home, my schedule's flexible.
Okay.
And, yep, I've already discussed it with the bank as far as flexibility.
So,
Well, I want to make sure that it's there, because like, I mean, like if there's a way, if we're talking about speeding things up, if, like, I don't know if like there's if there's a form for us to file about what are, what kind of things that we want to see in it, there's ways that we can speed that up, but I don't want to take away from the processes that we put in at last meeting at the exact same time. I want to make sure that what they're advertising fits in with the way that we wanted to do it. And I know the other thing was brought up with every single applicant, but I just wanted to hear it from you guys.
is the board gonna be able to see every resume?
Yep. There may have to be, like I said, some closed meeting aspects that come with it, because in the municipal executive world, you typically don't have a public release of names of candidates until you have your interview candidates, just because it may put other positions at risk. But because it is a hiring issue, the city commission does have the ability to go into closed session to review and discuss all of the applicants, including the resumes.
And if there's only two commissioners on the selection committee, or on I don't want to call it a selection committee, because the whole commission selects the candidate, it doesn't violate the Open Meetings Act. We're good that way.
And then what we'll be doing is, in our quarterly budget adjustments at the next meeting, also be including the budget adjustments to account for this inside of the city manager's professional services line item.
I'm comfortable with it, Your Honor.
So tonight, we're just approving
Accepting the proposal.
the proposal, okay?
I move we accept the MML proposal for the city manager search in the amount of $18,500.
I'll support.
Okay, I think Jordan got in there just a little quicker. Moved by Commissioner Justardens, supported by Commissioner Prunick, to enter into the agreement with the MML for, and accept the proposal, for the allotment of $18,500. Do we need a roll call vote for that at all? No, okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Item 18, amend city commission rules of procedure. Now, I asked for this, just at the last meeting, stating, if there was any opportunity for commission comment, since we had two, public comment sections. And, I don't wanna open a can of worms and go against open meetings laws. It's not all that important, as long as the commissioners can comment during the public comment section without taking any action on anything. So I don't know how anybody else feels.
Let me explain my concern. Back in the bad old days, the city commissioner comment section, city commissioners would sit there with their list of grievances against the city manager, and they would turn it into a fist fight. It would be a discussion, reasoning towards a decision. I physically had to stand up and get between commissioners who were going to slug it out. And as long as the city commissioner comment is a comment directed towards the chair and there's no discussion about it, I'm fine. I think it's a perfectly valid use of the commission's time. But I feared it's real easy to violate the Open Meetings Act in a community this small. And as long as commissioner comments don't turn into commission discussions and debates, I am very much in favor of it.
kind of keep it as a public comment.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially,
if
so
we
you don't
just
have
do
to
that-
comment back. I mean, essentially, it's
And anything that's necessary or worthy of discussion, we just simply place on the agenda.
So the only hiccup that I have with this is, because everything that's being said, I agree with. It's just that, do we want to have that little bit of extra insulation for other aspects of the meeting? Like, are we limiting us to 4 minutes? Because
I wouldn't think so.
yeah, which is one of the reasons why I've seen other groups put it as a secondary or an additional agenda item, is because that way the commissioner comments would not be subject to the 4 minutes. Because there were some times, like if you look at the county commission, when they have all their subcommittees, they use their committee, their commissioner comments to also talk about like, hey, I went to this QPAD meeting, hey, we had a planning commission meeting, and we were able to bring that back. As our city rules of procedure set up right now, we don't have a way to really report on what happens at subcommittees in a clear and concise way unless we make a big agenda point about it, and then we don't really know what's going on, you know, and that kind of came up today about the planning commission. So having the commissioner comments also be broken out and separated, so that way it's a different thing that's not subject to that time limit, I think would be viable.
Well, just, we don't need to have a time limit on it, and anything, if I come back, say, from a housing commission meeting to report what the housing commission's doing, that's easy enough to do, but if I report to the housing that something the housing commission is doing that is somehow contentious or is deserving of further discussion and debate, I would put that on the agenda, anticipating that would be a need or a desire.
Can we,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Bob, I'm done.
When we were at the school board, we changed our agenda to include committee.
Committee reports?
Committee reports. And if there weren't any, there weren't any. If there was one, that was fine. That was just an easy, almost
I think we used to do
number
that.
one on the agenda is committee, or at the end, it doesn't matter where it is. The end's probably the best place for it. Just so if there's a committee report, then we can get it in and we don't have to fool around in the middle of the agenda for it, so.
Yeah, that was basically, my thinking was just if there were comments or things out in the, public, like snowbanks. That
Right.
was something that was, that did get brought up and that was on my list actually. So that was the only reason really why I was separating that out from public comments, but,
So one item that I have seen other communities is they have been able to put committee reports inside of their consent agenda. And at that point, they're asking for written reports.
Right.
And as part of the consent agenda, the board does have, the commission has the ability to pull items out of the consent agenda for discussion on the agenda if the majority of the commission feels it's warranted. That's an item that I've seen handled other ways. And then conversely, as just a reminder, if there isn't a stated and a pre-approved time limit on public comment, you cannot restrict the length of the comment. And essentially, it's the local filibuster issue that comes up with it.
and we can keep things status quo.
That's a perfect place for it, it's consent agenda. as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
Well, who prepares the consent agenda, you or the clerk?
We put it together, it's on the second page of our, the commission's rules of procedure. We have a basic outline that we stated. If that's how the commission would like to handle it, I would recommend it be put in the consent agenda as communications to the commission is an acceptable line item. And then that could also be individual comments and not, far beyond just committee comments, but also individual written comments to the commission as a whole too. That will be recorded in the record.
And that's where your marketplace.
Yeah, that would be a good
Yep.
point.
So what's the consensus on that? If there is any, I entertain a motion
A motion for,
to add that item to.
yes, I make a motion, we add the committee reports in the consent agenda.
Isn't it already in
Yep, so we can do it, we can change paragraph 2D4 to committee reports and verbiage of it
there?
being,
Isn't it number 2, reports from commission committees?
Well, yeah, so we already have committees there, I'm sorry. Paragraph 2D2 is reports from committees. So,
So how's that defined, just before we go too far? Because like, I mean, we've never gotten, at least since I've been here, or even reading, just picking up the packets before as a member of the press, I've never seen a report from the planning commission. I've never seen anything from a ZBA, I've never seen anything from even what we had to do as the ARPA board. So it seems kind of toothless if we're asking for a report that isn't enumerated somehow.
yep, so very rarely has it happened, but like, especially the only time I've seen it happen is the planning commission has asked that things be brought up to the city commission, but it's probably been 7 or 8 years since that's happened. You guys, as a city commission, can also define the roles of your chairs of your boards too, and as part of that role of chair, you can make them responsible for, say, an annual report. By law, our planning commission does submit an annual report, which we're now following, and we're actually working on that currently, which will be here next month. But that is something that you as a commission can do in appointments, as well as make an agenda item and explicitly state that you wish that you have at least an annual report or monthly reports from the planning commission. I know we include minutes from other meetings, like the DDA minutes in the planning commission agendas, because they ask for that too, so. I mean, if the commission would like, we can put the minutes from other meetings from the planning commission and the DDA, which are the 2 other regularly scheduled meetings inside of.
Saying something what they're doing, you know, what's going on, you know, other than, I mean, going on YouTube now, but.
Not to create more work, but I would like to see, I mean, I get the DDA minutes now, but, you know, but to see that, just so we do know.
Yeah, I would like to see it,
I would like to be.
you know, for the planning commission, a quarterly report.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we're essentially losing an entire meeting by the time that we hear of an issue and then are able to put it on the
Right.
agenda to take action on it, but like, I don't want it to be oversight, I just want it to be information.
Just enough where you know what's going on.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I should be able to bring, you know, our planning commission is at the end of the month. And then within 10 days, we have a commission meeting. I should be able to advise the commission of what's been going on.
And it doesn't
And if
necessarily have
it's a
to be.
big thing, you know, Bill can come too, so.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a written report.
No.
right, and then that's fine too, but the way that the consent agenda is written, it implies that it's a written report. It's not, it does not imply that we're waiting around as part of the consent agenda to hear this. So it's less, we have to make sure that if we're amending the rules, that we're very clear about how we're amending them, even though that we've got lots of options that I think are gonna make everybody happy. So that's what I'm worried about, is making sure that it's clear in these rules.
And as you mentioned, I would also recommend that the expectations be enumerated as well.
Mhm.
But that's not in this document, is it?
No, it would just be, I mean, for asking for, you know, a quarterly report from the chair of the planning commission on planning commission activities for that quarter, it would just be a motion from the city commission to the appointed chair. So.
I just had one other question, just on this, I was reading this, on the suspension of rules. We need 4 out of 5 commissioners to approve that. It says here 2/3. You can't get 2/3 of 5. So yeah,
So it has to be 4/5.
they have to be 4.
Yep. So there are a number of items, including property items, that legally we have to have 2/3 majority. Because we're a 5-member board, the 2/3 is 4/5, but we keep the 2/3 enumerated because that's what's considered a supermajority.
Because like last meeting when you weren't here, it would have been 3/4. So,
Mhm.
you know, we have those issues too, so.
The only other comment I had, just off the top of my head when I was driving down here, what's going on with the cruise ship thing that was gonna supposedly dock down here? Any idea?
Oh,
Let's
yeah.
get through
Oh,
this-
yeah.
Let's get through this first.
Yep, but that, yeah, I can give you an update after the meeting on that.
Okay.
So, are we taking any action? Or,
I would-
leaving things as be, how,
I think based on what we heard today, I think we have to put it as an agenda item next week to make it clear about what the expectations are for the boards.
Okay,
And then we can come back and fix the rules later on.
okay,
So we would have to put it as an agenda item next month, or next meeting.
so, okay, so we will table it, but add this to the agenda for next.
So are we, you need a motion to table this until the next meeting, to revise the rules of procedure? Is that what we're going to do? Are we going to revise our rules of procedure?
I don't think we have to take action if we're not doing anything,
Okay.
so.
I'm all for not taking action.
Yes,
I'll
the
support.
less action, the better.
I don't know if we have to support it.
Yeah, no,
All right, moving on to item E, public comments. Anybody?
the only one I have is just, if you haven't went by the ice arena, go by and check those doors out, they're pretty sweet. Pretty nice to see.
I know the hockey people are happy.
It's beautiful.
Very
I
nice.
was actually blown away.
Yep, the hockey parents are definitely happy, they're not getting left out.
Yeah, I have one that's negative, unfortunately. Did anybody else receive any comments about the school millage comment that was made during the DDA report?
No, there was, it wasn't at the DDA, it comes up at the chamber, but there was no comments.
No. Kathy Reynolds, last year, when he was asking questions after the DDA report that
Oh.
were related to things, Kathy made a comment that said that our community was
I
essentially
remember the comment.
less deserving of a community because we're not gleefully rubber stamping the sinking fund for the school. And that ruffled a lot of feathers for people that have been quietly debating this. That sinking fund is way more controversial than people realize. And looking at the voting history of other millages across the UP for any type of school funding, that comment was way out of line. And I know I kind of head bobbed, and because I reviewed it again, I head bobbed, and Rod redirected very quickly after that comment was made. But there's a lot of people that are getting millaged out, and that comment was out of line. And there's other millages that are going on right now. Previously, it was the 911 millage, it was the library millage, it was that scam of the Marisa ISD millage that screwed over everybody in Alger County. Next up, it's gonna be Altran. And you look at the rest of the UP-wide millages that are going on for school funding initiatives. I don't know how anybody that can represent our community in that function if they're not gonna look at the other 15 counties and all the problems that are going on, especially in Houghton, Portage Lake Township School District, and make that comment here. And it upset a lot of people. And I feel bad about it because it doesn't matter which way they voted. The way that it is that people are quietly debating something, that people are trying to be informed, and they're trying to put stuff forward. And they took a stray from just a throwaway comment at that last meeting, and I know that it made a lot of people upset. So I wanted to just reaffirm that at these meetings, we need to be making sure that people that are being informed voters going to the ballot boxes, that they're respected and not disrespected like they were in that last meeting.
Well, in all fairness, our school millage is low.
See, now we're starting to
Yeah,
debate.
yeah.
I'm just saying, I don't disagree with you, to be honest with you, because I think that there was a real lack of information. So,
I was doing my best to
My
try
comment.
to not talk about the millage itself and more talk about
Right.
the people here that are trying to be informed.
I do have a comment. See, so we're in commissioner comments or public comments.
Okay,
Um,
got one.
I think the city commission, as you're leaving, Devin, has to prepare some worst-case scenarios for what's gonna happen in the federal government in the next year. From what I'm seeing, I'm scared to death. I fully expect all the funding that funds my whole division at MDHHS to be cut. And I can retire, thankfully. But I'm worried about what is gonna happen to the USDA. Department of Education, HUD, Park Service, the Forest Service. I'm worried that there's gonna be draconian cuts in staffing and in funding, and we need to prepare for them. Thankfully, we have some surplus in our budget, which I think we should do good, that we would do good to keep, but I think the city needs to prepare for the worst. And that's all I got to say about that.
Thank you. Okay,